All right, we're recording. All right, thank you guys for tuning in. Rory, how you doing today?
Good. How you doing, Sam?
I'm good, good. Very excited about this new series of webinars, I guess we can call them, the recordings that we're going to be doing around Opus1 Plus and different topics for music schools. And what did you want to talk about today?
So today, I think it's best that we talk a bit about the kind of standard customer journey for a music school. I think it's something that's
Hmm.
often overlooked in our industry. Um, as I'm sure many of our audience can relate to, a lot of us started as creatives first before we got into the music industry, and sometimes there's certain stages of entrepreneurship that we're lacking in. Like I think the biggest one I feel that we've identified is being able to identify every stage from the point a customer or a potential customer becomes aware of you to actually becoming a student, and then what you can do once they've already become a student to also continue to improve your business. So
Yeah,
what I'd like to do is talk a little bit first about the
and
customer journey.
ultimately, I mean, the goal is to grow your music school, right? The goal is to understand, because I mean, it's good you bring this up because I often talk to music school owners and they tell me, well, what should I do to grow my school? And I'm like, well, you should really identify what are your bottlenecks, right? Are you not retaining your students, or why is your school not growing? Is because maybe you're not retaining your students, maybe there's not enough students coming in, or maybe there's students coming in but you cannot provide them a service because you don't have enough teachers or enough room. So you need to identify, really looking at that journey, identify where are your bottlenecks and where you need to focus your efforts to get to the next level, right?
Absolutely. And for our audience watching that are musicians that have performed, the analogy I like to give is like a pedal board if you're a guitar player, or if you're running live sound. If you have a problem somewhere in your system, the first thing you have to do is to be able to isolate and identify the stages of your system. So if I'm playing a gig and I'm getting like really weird feedback, the first thing I need to do is go down my chain from my instrument all the way to the speaker step by step so that I can figure out where that problem originates. And I think we should take that same exact mentality when thinking about, well, wait a minute. I know I'm putting money into marketing. I know my teachers are great. Why am I not seeing the results I had hoped for? And I think the most important part to starting that kind of auditing process of your business is identifying what your customer journey truly is, right? Um,
Yep.
so I think the first thing we should talk about are these 5 stages. Now, this has been represented in lots of different ways over time, but I think this is the simplest way to understand a customer journey. And this applies to virtually any business you can think of. But I think it has a really good application to a music school or performing arts or dance school. So we have 5 steps here: awareness, consideration, convert, service and administrate, and then nurture, amplify. So at a really, really high level here, awareness
I
is
would, I
exactly.
would, I would also slightly rephrase. Let me know if you disagree with me. But on the nurture and amplify, I think retaining, right, is also key. I mean, I think that's what you mean by nurture is nurturing so that you retain that student, right?
Correct. Not only retain them, but also create opportunities where they would feel more comfortable being upsold too. So
Right.
if you're nurturing them, if you give them value constantly, not just trying to sell them stuff, but telling them ways in which their kid could get the most out of their lessons. If you develop that rapport with your customer base, when you come to them and you say, hey, I think little Timmy would really actually benefit from this group class that we do as well, they're going to be able to make that decision based on trust and rapport rather than you just trying to sell them something.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's what I mean by nurture. And for the audience, please forgive me. I am a bit of a sales guy, so I try to not be too jargony. This is the language we tend to use in the sales world. Um, so the first stage here is awareness, and I think that one's easily understood by everybody, right? It's how did they become aware that your business existed?
And by the way, just sorry to interrupt. I think one thing that's worth mentioning here is that there is I think people, music school owners really have to understand these different steps, and we're going to talk about them. And it's really important is to understand what these steps are, understand this flow, and be able to. And we want to ultimately identify the bottlenecks, right? And ultimately identify how we can optimize each steps, especially those that are being bottlenecks, right? And I think when people don't realize that you cannot improve something you don't measure, right? So you really need to measure these different steps so that you can identify them. Okay, is this a bottleneck or not? And then, of course, improve things and optimize things, because once you start measuring, then you have a baseline that you can iterate on and try different things and improve things over the different steps of this process.
Absolutely. Decision making without data is conjecture, right? And it's not something we want to do. It's always good to have a gut feeling that, oh, I think my marketing is producing these many leads, or I think I'm converting this many leads. And a lot of times when you're running a business and you're doing a million different things, your sense of how big a problem is may not be accurate. It could be smaller than you think it is as well, but that's why it's really important to measure. So Sam, I think you nailed it. Super important point. So firstly, we have the awareness stage, right? So this is how people know you exist. This could be word of mouth, or what we consider kind of organic awareness. This could be going into Google and searching for piano lessons near them and assessing businesses based on their reviews, number of reviews, and proximity to where they're located. Or this could be digital marketing. This could be, a Meta ad campaign or a Google AdWords campaign, right? The next stage in this process is consideration. So, okay, they know you exist, and they also know the guy down the street exists that also provides the same service as you. They both have guitar lessons. They both had decent reviews. They're now in the consideration stage. This is really when they're going to your website. They're reading your reviews. They're kind of doing a comparison. Hey, where is the best place for me or for me to bring my child to take lessons, right? And they're also going to be able to do this through how they're able to book with you. And this is where it overlaps a little bit with the convert stage. The convert stage is once they've made a decision to commit to a service from a business, how do they actually complete that transaction? And in our industry, it's not just a transaction, it's also booking and scheduling, right? So what does that process look like? And we're going to talk a little bit after this about some ways that are better than others in a conversion process. The next stage is to service and administrate. This is the kind of dry stuff. This is the reason you probably got Opus in the first place. This is the real day in, day out kind of what we think of as front desk work. Making sure that everything is organized, that the teacher's aware of the schedule, the parent is aware of the schedule, the administrator's aware of the schedule, that makeups are accounted for, that credits are accounted for. This is really like the core of your business, your system of records. And then the last stage here is nurture and amplify. So, okay, we've won them over. They're aware of us. They've considered us. They chose us and converted. We have now been serving them for X period of time. Now we have to think as business owners, how can we leverage that even further? So the obvious one is upselling, right? If you have other services that you could sell to your customer base, could be a rock band ensemble, but there's also amplify. And this is the idea of taking these positive experiences that your customers have had and amplifying them for other people to hear and be attracted to your business. So this is almost like a circle. You can see how this feeds all the way back into the awareness stage again.
Yeah. So I want to add one more point on the nurture and amplify it, and I also say retain, within that thing. One thing that people don't realize is music schools can be a great business, and but if you do it right, and obviously, it makes sense to say we want to retain the customer as long as possible. Obviously, that makes sense. Why not? But the retaining is very important, because what makes a music school a good business, if done right, is that you have recurring revenue. And recurring revenue is gold standard in how business are evaluated. It's that whether you're talking about software business like SaaS or a music school in that case, where there is other businesses that sell stuff and they have to re-win their customer every time because they're selling something. Today I sold an apple. Tomorrow I need to sell another apple. I need to win another customer every day. If you have a music school student and they're on monthly billing and they're taking private lessons with you and they're going to learn piano, it's going to be a 10-year journey, hopefully 5 to 10-year journey. So, and that's accumulating and compounding that growth and adding more students in and retaining them for years and getting the right students in, serving them and retaining them for years with a monthly billing system, right? Where you don't have to re-win their business every 3 months or 6 months is super important, because that's what allows your business to grow and scale and then be valued and grow and bring you revenue and potentially when you retire later on, sell it at a good valuation.
Yeah, that's exactly what the concept of like nurturing or retaining is about, right?
And
it's not.
obviously, then a happy student is going to talk to their friends and bring their friends to join as well, right? So that's the amplify too as well, right? That's what you meant.
Of course, and that's the amplify stage, right? So this is the idea of either them telling their friends, so more word of mouth, or what I like to call digital word of mouth, which is leaving a review for you. That is the water cooler talk of 2024, especially as more and more people work from home, right?
Yeah.
That is word of mouth. So that's the amplify stage. But on the nurture side, it's making sure, whether it's by newsletters or letting people know about upcoming recitals or even other events that your business may be involved in, that you're constantly reminding the parent in subtle ways why they're getting value on a monthly basis for subscribing to your business and bringing in their kids to lessons on a monthly basis. I think every music school owner out there or teacher out there can sympathize with the idea of like that monthly idea of, okay, like how many are we going to keep? How many are we going to lose? And I think if you really focus on this nurture stage, you can feel quite a bit better about that.
Yeah.
Now,
And I want to add another point in nurturing. Right now, we put nurturing at the end, like nurturing that existing customer. But when we're gonna start, when we talk about awareness and consideration in more details and conversion, we're gonna talk about nurturing that prospect, the one that hasn't signed up yet, the one that's thinking about guitar lessons for months but actually haven't signed up, and we need to keep nurturing them until they do convert, right?
absolutely. So none of these stages are necessarily mutually exclusive. So like
Yeah.
you may be aware that I want to of a business and the fact that you want to sign your kid up for guitar lessons there, but you may not, and then you may become a customer taking that type of lesson. But then you may become aware as an existing customer that the business that you patronize, that you're a patron of rather, also does another service you had no idea about. You had no idea there was a rock band, right? So any one of these stages can actually apply in different places. This is kind of the simplified, distilled version of it for simplicity's sake. Now,
Yeah.
when somebody comes to you and they're starting at this very first stage, the awareness stage, they're going to have the highest point of motivation. This is them kind of in that awareness consideration stage. They know that their kid has been bugging them for months about guitar or piano lessons. They just saw the new Taylor Swift or Green Day video, and they've been saying, "Mommy, mommy, mommy, I want to play guitar," right? Um, the motivation's quite high here, right? And along the way, that motivation can incur some friction, right? And that friction could be the kids starting to change their mind. It could be that life is happening and they get distracted. And we can't control those things. But what we can control is the third type of friction, which is process related friction. The idea that we want to make this as easy as humanly possible for them to get deeper and deeper into your funnel, into your process, so that for them to back out and look at anyone else becomes extremely cumbersome. And this is where having good software and good systems and good processes becomes extremely important.
Yeah.
So one of the
Well,
things,
one thing, sorry, I want to add, yeah, this is a very important point. And obviously, in this, we're focusing on the process, the software, the ads, and all of that. But obviously, I mean, we're not stating the obvious. You need to have you need to have great teachers. You need to have great facilities. You know, we're here focusing more on the business processes, but there's a lot of great teachers. Like at my school, we have great teachers, but I know that some of our competitors are pretty good teachers too. And what makes a difference, when how we get customers is the facility, the ease, the how easy it is to self book, right? How we are with makeup policies. So all these other things you can do between your facilities, your recitals, and honestly, other schools have decent facilities and recitals. Everybody does that, right? What differentiates you from these other schools is having a good process, good customer service, and a system that makes it frictionless or as frictionless as possible for get your students to be aware of you, consider you, convert into your school, and stay with you for years, right? That's what you mean, right?
absolutely. I mean, and we can see this in platforms we use every day, right? So like an example I think of, and maybe it was just because I spend way too much money there, Sam, is Amazon Prime. It is so unbelievably easy for me to get a thought in my head about something that I want or need and to immediately check out, and it's to my house within a day. It
Yeah.
is really honestly acting on my impulses, and it's
Mhm.
allowing me to act on my impulses quickly. And then once I get the item, I can be sold on that item further by the quality of the item, right? Now, the analogy here for music lessons would be I may impulsively, to a certain extent, want to sign myself or my child up for lessons. And we
Yeah.
want to capitalize on that impulse. Now, some impulses are more serious than others, but you want to make sure that it's not your process that makes the difference about whether or not they sign up. You want them to get to the lesson, and that's when the real selling begins. Because they're going to meet your great teachers, they're going to have a great experience, and they're going to walk out of that lesson room smiling and excited for the next lesson and about, hey, maybe I can learn this. Maybe I can get great at guitar or piano or violin or whatever the instrument is.
Yeah.
So what we're trying to do with Plus, and I feel we've actually done quite a good job with and are continuing to do, is having tools within Plus or features of Plus that really identify each of these stages. And we're going to go very in depth today, and Sam's really going to lead this part of the conversation, but I wanted to give a visual representation of how some of these things align with these stages. So the first one we have is reputation management. And in a nutshell, this is your ability to consistently and methodically generate reviews from your existing customers. So this is really actually part amplify and part awareness and consideration. And as a former marketing guy for music schools, I cannot tell you how much this is important. Whether you use Opus Plus or you use something else on the market, I cannot implore music school owners enough to pay attention to your reviews. This is huge.
Yeah, I want to talk about that actually. Reviews, that's kind of the new. You and I were talking about. It's kind of like the new SEO, right? If I look for piano lessons, Mountain View, right, which is where I am now, where my schools are. What do I see, right? So that's what people do, right? They have an intent. So they might see you on Facebook where they don't have an intent, right? But you're building your brand. So Facebook ads might be useful. But what's going to happen is when people have an intent or an impulse, like you said, they want to, sign up their kids for a guitar lesson. They're going to go to Google and search for it, right? And they're going to look for piano lessons around me or piano lessons in the town that I am at or whatever. And what do they see? First, they see ads. And obviously, my school here has good ads. And we're not going to talk about ads too much today, but obviously, ad is an important thing you need to consider and optimize your Google ads and how you track and all of that. And then the next thing you see, so there's another competitor of ours here. And then you see what I call the hyper local results, right? So the Google businesses, the Google places. Google has changed the name over time, but so what we see here is the map, and obviously music lessons are hyper local, right? You're not going to drive 50 miles, right, Rory, to go attend your piano lesson every week. That would be
I
a
don't even
nightmare.
think the best teacher is going to have somebody drive that car.
So it's going to be within the vicinity of where you live, right? 5, 10 miles, maybe 15 miles at best, depending, and if you're very urban or rural area. So the second thing people see way before the organic results that are way down here after the people ask and other things. So this is where my school is in terms of SEO. Pretty good ranking. I think it's almost the first or third organic results, but it's so far down. Who cares? At that point, nobody looks. What people look at is going to be your ads, which are very important right here, and then your local businesses. And how do you get ranked and how do you show up here is based on making sure your business information is up to date with Google and other services like that, especially Google, but your reviews, right? So we're talking about getting reviews. I made the mistake for years of not getting enough reviews for my school, and we had our competitors way ahead of us, and I didn't realize how important this was. And then over the last year or so, we started to push for more reviews, and we added this feature in Opus1 Plus to get more reviews and to feature them on our website. And I want to talk a little bit about that, because as you can see, the reason why we show up here is because we're local, but around other music schools that compete with us, we show first because of a high rating and high number of reviews. And this is super important, right?
Yeah, and I think on that note, Sam, too, I think music school owners should put themselves as the consumer for a moment. Let's say you're looking for the best Italian food where you are, or the best tacos where you are. If you were to search tacos near me, you are more than likely going to pick the one that has 100 reviews and they're 4.8 stars. Then you're even going to bother looking at the one that only, let's say, has 12 to 20 reviews. Now, when you're assessing this for your own business, there is a kind of a side note here. It's super important that you're in incognito mode. If you're not, your Google is already optimized for you. So your Google more or less kind of knows you work at this place, or at the very least, they know that you're heavily associated with it. So they're likely to always kind of show you first. I've talked to business owners before and they go, oh, I'm number one for piano. I'm number one for guitar. And I say, well, you're number one on your computer, but let's put you in incognito mode and let's look at it now. And that's going to give you, just for the people at home, to get a way more accurate view of what your standing is.
Yeah, so if we look at, and this is what a journey I've been through with my school over the last year. If you looked at us a year and a half ago, we had maybe 20 reviews, and we were focusing more on Yelp. Yelp is a way to get customers. We do get customers through Yelp, but Yelp is a lot trickier about. They have a much more stringent policy about you should not be asking for reviews. So people should give you reviews on their own. And if we feel like you've been asking for reviews, or if we see certain patterns, we will hide those reviews. So it's very frustrating. And then guess what? You end up with only bad reviews because the only few unhappy customers are the one that are going to go on Yelp and give you a bad review. Because if you ask for reviews, they don't show them. Now, and Yelp doesn't help you as much as Google actually does with SEO, or what I just showed you, ranking high in the organic results. So I've been focusing in my school a lot more on getting Google reviews. And as you can see from what I was showing earlier, we got, something like in the 90s, and we continue to get more. And how did we do this, right? So obviously using Opus1 Plus, we're able to first measure, right? So it's you can go to Google and see how many reviews you have, but in Opus1 Plus, we kind of show you, we give you this. So what Opus1 Plus does for you here is it's gonna for all your location, is gonna crawl all your Yelp and Google reviews and put them in a public page like this that's easy to browse, where they can all be together. So you can feature that on your website and say, hey, look at all the reviews we have, and they're obviously legitimate because you can even click on the review and see the real review on Google. So you can start measuring wherever you're at, and maybe you don't have that many Google reviews yet. And how now the question is, how do you get more? So we give you, and there's different ways to do it. We give you links, a QR code. So I'll show you what it looks like. So if you look at your locations, so this is my school locations. For each location, so here they are. We're going to show you what is your current rating, how many stars, and how many Google reviews and Yelp reviews. And we give you a QR code that you can easily put at your front desk, or different places, at your recitals. A lot of techniques we can talk about to get reviews. And we also give you a link that you can copy paste, and you can use that link in an email campaign or an SMS campaign. And we're going to talk about campaigns in a minute. And you can ask for reviews to your customers. There's some strategies. I found that, for example, people are more likely to help people than businesses, right? Naturally. So always, position it as help us support your local community and your teacher by giving us a great Google review. Recitals is a good time to ask for reviews because people are happy and they had a good time. And I also found that Teacher Appreciation Week, which is in May, is a great way to say, hey, support your teacher and your school. Give us a great Google review. And we got hundreds of reviews during Teacher Appreciation Week. Now, where it gets tricky is when you ask for reviews, when you put yourself out there, you're going to get eventually some unhappy customers, right? So this is where the link that we give you through Opus1 Plus is a little bit tricky, because we're going to ask the customer if they're happy first before we ask for their review. So if they're happy, great, we send them straight to your Google review. They can leave you a great Google review or Yelp review. Now, if they're a little bit unhappy or really not happy, then we do want to keep that feedback, right? We ask them for their feedback, so let's get that feedback, but obviously we don't want it out there on Google. And remember that in some cases, if you put a review as link, you might naturally get more unhappy customers than happy ones, right? So you need to get reviews from happy customers, obviously, but you need to filter out as much you can in an ethical way those bad reviews, right? So what if a bad review comes in, right? So with Opus1 Plus, we're going to let you still capture that review, get that feedback from the customer, and address it, obviously, because you want to figure out why they're not happy and do something for them. So if the customer writes a bad review here because the teacher was late, or there's a misunderstanding with your makeup policy, whatever it is, then you can address it, right? So Opus1 Plus gives you a way to get those reviews, try to filter out the bad ones and maximize the good ones. And then when those reviews are in, and we have other things we'll talk about in batch email, batch SMS, and automated follow-ups and things like that helps you get those reviews. Once you get those reviews, they get featured, right? So let's say if I go to my music school website, musicopus1.com, a couple of things you're going to see. So first of all, when people book a trial lesson, we are going to be featuring next to our locations the reviews for those locations. So that helps, kind of like getting a reinforcement about, oh, They have 51 Yelp reviews and 94 Google reviews, a 5-star, 4.6. That looks like a good business. I might want to schedule lessons with, right? So we're going to feature those reviews prominently when people self-book lessons with your teachers. The second thing I want to show is going back to my school's website is as people browse for your services and let's say they look at your pricing, okay, let's take a look at how much does it cost. Oh, it's quite expensive. Well, within a few seconds, we're going to be showing on your website, and this is a little we'll call widget that we have. And the format changes, but here it is, powered by Opus1 We're going to show your customers your average rating across all your reviews, Yelp and Google. And basically the idea is like, hey, this school is great. You should sign up with this school because look, we have a 4.9 out of 5 rating out of 355 reviews. And if I click on them, I can see all of them right here on the website, whether I can filter by Yelp or Google, etc. So we're going to help you basically get reviews, rank better. People are going to find you more easily. And then we're going to help you feature those reviews on a different stage of that customer journey when they're browsing your website or when they're browsing your teacher's availability and ultimately book that trial lesson and get into the next stage of your customer journey, right? So Google reviews, Yelp reviews, super important. And Opus1 is going to help you to get more reviews. And there's one more trick I want to show. Sometime, I've seen my staff being a little bit shy about asking for reviews, but if you're talking to a happy customer, I'm just going to show here. Let's take an example. You can, I'll just take Tom though here as an example. Sometimes my staff is a little bit shy about asking for reviews, and I tell them, hey, get opportunities to ask for reviews when you see happy parents, happy customers. And what you can do is you can just click the get review, request review link when you see that happy customer, select the location you're at, and then they will receive either an email and or an SMS, depending if you have SMS with Opus1 or not. And they will receive a templated request for a review very easily in just one click. So we started implementing all these things, and there's a few other things I haven't had time to mention, and our number of reviews skyrocketed and our enrollment with it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely.
Cool. So let's talk about the next stage now. So after that awareness and what is the next stage that matters according to you?
So after awareness, we're in the consideration, which is kind of part of that awareness stage.
Yeah, still.
That's where they're actually looking at your business and trying to say, do I want to go to Mike's School of Music or John's School of Music, right? But now we're really at the convert stage, which as a former instructor and former school owner, this is my favorite part about Opus is the self-booking. I mean, it's one of my favorite things about it. But
Me too.
those are for people that have already made the decision, right? These are people that are saying, no, just sign me up, take my money, right? Those are easy. We already know how to manage those in Opus. But there are also those that are going to fill out something like a lead capture form, or those that are going to start with a trial lesson for our business owners out there that do the trial lesson. And this is where the sales pipeline, and yet again, I'm biased, I'm a sales guy, is really, really, really cool. So the way I like to frame this for our business owners out there is think of it like you're trying to capture an animal, right? Let's say you're like hunting and trapping, and you put all this money and effort into your bait, which is your marketing dollars, right? And I think we all know that ad spends can get quite high. You spend all this money and effort on these great ads. Maybe you pay an agency to do it, or maybe you spent countless hours learning how to do it on your own. You do all that. And then when the animal you've been trying to catch shows up, you actually don't have a good trap, and you actually don't have a way to measure how effective that trap is either. This is where this sales pipeline becomes extremely important. So I always ask music school owners that are considering Plus or any kind of sales pipeline, whether it's like a Zoho or Monday or something like that, do you ever get the feeling that you have leads coming through your door that you are not converting, that are slipping through your fingers because you're forgetting to reach out? Or do you even have a way to measure this meaningfully so that you can really understand, of the marketing dollars I'm spending, how many conversions do I ultimately get? And without that piece of the puzzle there, you can't even feel confident that your marketing spend is accurate, right?
And also a couple of things. And also, I mean, as a business owner, sometimes you do it yourself. Sometimes you have staff doing it, right? And your staff is doing a lot of things. They're at the front desk. The phone is ringing. This teacher is late. This teacher is sick. This mom is complaining because she wants another makeup. They end up staying in their comfort zone. That's what happened at my school. And they don't follow up on leads. So we had hundreds of leads that were not tracked accurately, that were not being followed up, or people that would come in, they had done a trial, and then maybe they did a trial in another school, and they just can't make a decision, so they never sign up. Or people that, oh, they're too young, but we should have followed up with them 3 months later, and nobody did, right? So we had, at my school, we had hundreds of leads that were not followed up, and that's why we developed actually the sales pipeline in Opus1 IO Plus, because I realized we have all that money left on the table. So many leads that had come in, either people that we got their information during a fair or an event, or some kind of event, or and we never followed up with them, or people that came in for a trial, like I said, and maybe they're not sure yet, they were not being followed up. So we had all these hundreds of leads that were just there but not being followed up. And another thing I want to say is that if you have a student that came in and had a trial, and you don't convert them because, I don't know, maybe the teacher did not do great, or maybe your admin staff did not do great at welcoming them, or maybe you didn't follow up with them, you lost money, because the trial lesson costs you money, right? When you pay a few $100, a few $1,000 per month on ads, and eventually somebody click on that ad and signs up for a trial lesson, that has a cost. I mean, for me, it's about $200 or so, or sometimes more if you count the customer acquisition cost of, if we look at the money we spend on marketing and how many actually students actually did sign up, it's gonna be $100 to $200, and you count also the time that your teacher spent. Maybe you have that trial that was discounted, but you pay the teacher the normal rate, things like that. Your rent, because that room was used. So you have to add up all that cost within your customer acquisition cost. So you spend money on ads, you spend money on your teacher, you spend money on your on your SEO, you spend money on your Google reviews, you spend time and effort on all this, and then you have all these leads coming in, and it's a leaking basket that your staff is not following up on those leads, right? And then you could have enrolled 100 or 200 more students, but you just did not follow up with them. And guess what? They went with the easiest option. Maybe your competitor did, and they did a little bit more aggressive in getting them signed up, and they ended up getting the customer and you didn't, right? So I think tracking these prospects, whether they come in as a lead capture or after a trial, is super important. So I don't know if you want to add anything on that particular topic, Rory. You're very experienced sales, both music school and and other sales.
Absolutely. So, I mean, to kind of reiterate what you said about the cost of acquisition. So, cost of acquisition, or CAC, as it's sometimes called, CAC, is basically how much money do I have to spend on the front end approximately to get one converted customer. That's the idea behind it, just super, super simplified. So that's your front end cost. And for Sam School, I think you said it's around 200 or so dollars per conversion. And this type of math is really important to know for your business, because it helps influence how much you have to spend on marketing to get a desired outcome.
And
So
one thing I want to add on that topic is it's important to know that number, but I also saw people that try to overthink it. You need to have an idea what that number is, right? But you should focus more on fixing the problem, is why your students are not being followed up. I also saw the kind of the extreme where people were overthinking, trying to get an exact amount. Doesn't really matter if it's 110 or 115 or 112. Well, yeah, as long as it's costing you about $100 to $200 to get a customer through the door. Because so I also want to point that out, that
absolutely,
it's more important to focus on fixing the problem. Exactly, the seasonality. There are times where you can have a lot more bang for your buck. Let's say in August, September, you're going to spend some amount of money on ads and get a lot more customers. So I was also say, it's important to have an idea of what that number is and take it into your consideration. And also, but the more important thing is to fix the core problem, is following up on those leads, making sure they're all getting followed up, rather than obsessing about, is it $110 or $112? You know what I mean?
Yeah, I don't think you should split hairs on the exact dollar amount. However, what I will kind of counter with is the idea of, if you can't even begin to measure the efficacy of your conversion, good luck even getting close to a ballpark of what your CAC might be, right? Yeah. So that's the upfront cost. That's if you don't convert a lead that was happy and walked in your door and for whatever reason did not convert to a long-term student, that's your upfront cost. But there's also a back-end cost as well. So I'm going to do some tablecloth math here. And by tablecloth math, I mean iPhone math. So let's say the average student is paying you, I'm just going industry average, what I see, around $140 a month for lessons. And we're going to be really conservative here and just say they only stay with you for 1 year. super conservative here.
And that's still pretty low. I mean, for my school, I estimate 3 to 5 years lifetime, of a
It's
customer.
super low. So let's say it's a really low qualified lead. They're taking an instrument that we know tends to be a little less sticky. On the very, very low end, we're talking about 1680 in revenue that did not come through your door. So that's the back end cost on the low end of not converting a lead. That's why it's
Yeah,
so
and you're still paying rent. You're still paying your rent. You're still paying your admin. You're still paying your teacher sometimes for their holes in their schedule. So yeah, it has a big cost, right?
absolutely. And it's all just because you're missing something as simple as a process to convert people.
Yeah,
And this is where I'm a big advocate for music schools to have a sales team. Sales team might mean just you as the owner. It might mean you and a couple admin people. It could be that you have multiple locations and you have a centralized sales center. It could be any one of those things. People tend to think of sales as this concept of like having a silver tongue and convincing people that they should take lessons at your school or buy Opus, for instance, right? But that's really not what sales is by definition. Sales is really having a system and a process that is replicable, that you know that over time will produce results for your business. That's what sales is. And I really implore all the music school owners out there to
yeah.
start to think about that and get the right tools to help you kind of adopt that
Yeah, I
mentality.
want to add a couple of things on the topic because I know firsthand, being a music school owner, is that you don't have experienced people in sales in your admin team, because you get people who do like scheduling, customer service, and sometimes sales is not there. Of course, I mean at Opus1 we have very large school that are doing great on sales, and they have dedicated salespeople because they can afford it. But when you're a school with 200 or 300 students, maybe less, maybe slightly more, you don't have dedicated sales team, don't have dedicated salespeople. But your admin and the business owner is the sales team, and they need to put together the sales process. They need to learn. And when I trained my staff, my admin staff that were good, and they all have complementary skills, but sales was not really not one of them, right, over the years. So I did some sales training, very basic, and I'm not a great salesperson myself either. But what I told them is like, hey, you need to follow up with these leads. Because by doing this, you're not being like a sleazy car salesman, pushing a product on them that they don't need. They came through the door. They want to take music lessons, right? But sometimes they just need to talk to their wife, their husband, their kids, and they're not ready to make a decision. But your goal is to help them make that decision. Obviously, you want to close the business, you want to close the deal for the music school, but you're also helping them securing that spot, because if they come back 5 days later, that spot might be gone. So you're not pushing something they don't need. They already know they want to take music lessons. You just want to facilitate that process, convert them, make sure they secure that spot that they wanted with that teacher that had a good lesson with. So I think it's important to train your going back to what you're saying, you need to train your admin staff that is not maybe necessarily super experienced in sales, and also have a good process and a good system, right? That's what we're saying, also having a good tool to track all these leads, right?
Yeah, I mean, you and I talk about this a lot. Salespeople get a bad rep, right? But the funny thing is, I'm a former teacher myself, and I ended up being a sales professional. My entire sales team is all music teachers. So your staff that's involved in your business can certainly learn to become salespeople. And really all that they need, in my personal opinion, to have a consultative sales approach is you need a system, and a literal system, and also a conceptual system of how it should work. And you need to be helpful. Those are the two things you need. People are coming to your business because they know you're an expert in this. So sometimes they don't know the right questions to ask. And that's why it's your team's job to follow up with them, find out what the goals of the potential student are, help guide them in the right direction as to who they should go with, what to expect, and also to facilitate the booking process. That's good
Exactly.
sales right there. It's good for your business, and it's good for the customer, and it's ultimately good for the student.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah, I want to add, like, when students withdraw from my school, I see the feedback they give, and those are natural withdrawals, like people that withdraw and stop their lessons after a few years, and they love their teacher, they love the school, and they always say teacher is number one, great teacher, facilities, customer service, but also the self booking and the ease of booking makeups through Opus1. Always comes back as a feedback when we do customer surveys, whether after they leave or while they're happy customers. So I want to talk a little bit about, we're talking about having, a process and a tool to manage your prospect, right? You're going to have prospect and leads coming from different sources, right? Whether they filled a lead capture, whether they booked a trial, whether they sent you a text, or whether they called your school, So you're going to capture all these leads, and the question is what do you do with them, right? So I want to talk a little bit about how Opus1 Plus can help you with that. There's other CRMs out there, by the way. We have customers who use Monday.com and HubSpot, whatever. They're great, and they do a lot more than we do, by the way. But they're definitely more complicated to set up. They're not integrated, right? So they're not. You have to keep them in sync and work with different tools. They may be more expensive, more complex to set up, right? So what we try to do with Opus1 Plus is give the average music school, whether you have 200 students or 3,000, a good tool where you can really manage all your prospects, all your leads. And as they go through that journey, maybe they fill the lead capture form, maybe they book the trial lesson, maybe you need to up with them after the trial lesson, or maybe they're too young and then you need to follow up with them 3 months later. We'll give you the tool to, in an as automated way as possible, you can basically track all of these and make sure not a single lead and prospect gets missed, right? So I want to talk a little bit about that. Feel free to interrupt me if you have any questions. We released these features over the last 6 months, and we're continuously adding cool stuff and new features there. So I want to talk a little bit about kind of the sales pipeline module of Opus1 Plus, right? So the first thing is we give you this what we call a Kanban board. So you can see it as a funnel that goes from left to right, where you're gonna have prospects coming in. These statuses, by the way, they're configurable. You can even move the columns around if you want. This is the default setup. This is what I use for my school. We've seen customers use more complex and different systems, but the idea is you can customize these different stages, right? So these are the ones I use for my school. So you have prospect new, prospect follow-up, prospect trial follow-up, and prospect sleep and lost, right? Obviously, you can create new ones, and if you go into your business settings, I'll show that very quickly. Under the CRM section, you can do a few different things. You can customize the statuses. And I'll talk about how I use mine, and which is very typical for a music school. But again, you can do something different. And we also so the other thing is as leads come into your system, you can, and we'll talk about accountability and tracking. You can also have them automatically assigned to your staff. So you can say, okay, as a new lead is created, we're going to have them. Be assigned to, I don't know, I think I had Michael as an example, Michael manager, and we have, let's say, Chris staff, right? So let's say, and you can even have higher priority if you want more leads to go to the staff than the manager, whatever. You can set up priorities, right? So what this will do is as leads come in, we know that your first stage is prospect new. So a new prospect, you can call it something different, as I said. So any new client created in the system, whether they fill the capture or lead capture form, whether you just capture their information because they called you or they texted you, or whether they actually try to book a trial lesson, but then they at the last minute, they did not put their credit card in. So they kind of like, they didn't complete the checkout process, but we still capture their information, right? So you're gonna have all these different leads coming in from different sources, and we're gonna track them and we're gonna label them prospect new and put them in a way that your team can follow up with them and even assign them automatically to members of your team. So there's some level of accountability, right? We also have here, by the way, a lead capture form where you can also have people fill a lead capture form and you can ask them different questions. And also based on some of those answers, like maybe the location and the instrument they're interested in, they can be also automatically tagged with that instrument, right? So there's an auto tag feature here. Well, if somebody selected piano, they will automatically be tagged as piano so you can find them more easily, right? So we have all these different settings. I don't have time to go through all the settings, but you can set up your funnel, right? And when prospects come in, they're gonna automatically show up in this. And there's two views. There is the funnel view, the Kanban board, where you can easily move people around and click on them to see what's going on with them, and we'll talk about that. And we also have the more like the conversion report view where I'm going to remove we can see every single prospect. We can also see it by, this is a recent interface that we just added. And we're going to talk about this because there's a lot of super useful metrics talking about measuring and optimizing. We can see here an aggregate view of all the prospects that are currently either pending or won or lost, and who they're assigned to. And we have a detailed view and a consolidated view. So we're going to talk about this in a minute. So let's talk a bit about the journey, right? Talking about the customer journey from, they've shown some interest and we need to sign them up. So I'm going to use this view as an example. So here is how I use it. And again, you can use the same system. This is the default setup, or you can come up with your own system, but it's important to have a system and have a tracking mechanism, right? So first you're going to have new prospects, right? So prospect new, whatever you want to call them, they're going to show up here. And usually when you click on them, you know exactly when that account was created. So you have an idea, okay, this prospect has been created about 2 weeks ago. I want to also add something important. The prospect here is the kid or the person who wants to take the lesson, right? But obviously, they're not the payer, they're not the person you have to convince. I mean, the kid obviously comes into the equation because they have the lesson, they have a good time or a bad time with your teacher, and they decided they want to continue or not. But the real customer that you want to convert is the parent, right? Now, we do track things accurately here because Alice is going to be a kid. Let's say Alice is a teenager here. She is your prospect. Alice may or may not have a phone number and an email address because maybe she's a 6-year-old kid. And you're going to be talking with her account manager or account managers, which is going to be mom or dad usually. So we give you all that information here. But the way we're tracking it on the system here is the prospect is the actual kid. Unless you're dealing with an adult student who wants to take lessons for themselves, that also may be the case. But, and this is something that most CRMs are not going to do very well, is recognizing who is taking lessons and who are we talking to, right? And one mom, Jane Doe, may have 3 kids that are prospects for different instruments, different programs, right? So we're going to show this in a correct and easy to manage way in Opus1 because we have all that information about your students and their parents. And we give you an easy way to, okay, so let's say Alice Doe just kind of, or Jane just signed up, walked through the door. I know that Jane and John are the parents. I capture their information. Maybe they filled the lead capture form online or they tried to book a trial but did not book it yet. But so this step is what we call the qualification step. We need to capture their information, which we just did. And we need to figure out what do they want, right? So I'm going to talk to them, and we give you the ability here to add tags. So what I use tags for is usually something like the instrument they're interested in. Maybe she may be interested in cello, maybe piano. And you can also do other things. And these tags are going to be useful later on for searching and filtering. So maybe you can also capture maybe which days they're interested in. Maybe they open on Saturdays and maybe that's the only day that they care about. And maybe a specific teacher, or maybe a specific location, let's say Palo Alto, right? So you're going to tag or qualify your prospect and tag them. And then as you work with them through email, SMS, whatever. So first of all, by the way, you can also easily SMS mom directly from here. And if you use the Opus1 SMS, it's all integrated. You can just click here and get into the SMS interface and just, deal with mom directly and SMS mom directly from here. Or you're going to give them a call. Maybe you give them a call and you're following up with them to try to figure out what instrument they're interested in. And maybe you left a voicemail. So we want to have an idea that a voicemail was left and somebody followed up with them. But let's say maybe you talk to them and you say, I talked to Jane. They really care about, I don't know, this type of exam or this type of instrument or this type of music program, and they have some questions, blah, blah. So I'm going to capture some information I have about them so that maybe if I'm not the one that's going to follow up with them, I can have somebody in my team to do it, right? So maybe I can also tag somebody and say, hey, Michael manager, I want you to follow up with that customer, right? So call Jane and get them signed up. They have questions about this program or this teacher. So that's going to notify Michael, and I can even assign, if it wasn't assigned automatically, I can even assign Michael to this lead. So now Michael is in charge of it, and when Michael goes to that interface, he can see, I want to see all the leads assigned to myself, and I will see Alice right here, right? So we have ways to automatically or manually assign an admin staff or a person that's going to be following up with that prospect. And then usually once you talk to them and you understood what they want, that they're qualified, you have an idea of what they're interested in. So then I would move them to prospect follow-up, because at that point they're not just a lead that came in; they are qualified leads. So by qualified in the jargon, and you know this better than me, Rory, it means that we have a better idea of whether they're a good fit, right? Maybe okay. So let's say for example they want trombone and you don't offer trombone, right? So now you know that they're not a good fit, right? You cannot serve that customer. So at that point, you might just move them out and unassign them and move them out, or mark them as lost and they're not a good fit, right? In this case, they want piano and cello, and we totally offer piano and cello lessons. So now they're a qualified lead, and they move to the next stage, and the next stage is the follow-up stage. So now maybe you talk to them on the phone and they tell you, well, thinking about Saturdays or Sundays or whatever. We're not sure if we want to do piano or cello yet. Let me talk to my daughter. I'll get back to you. So they haven't signed up yet. Now, maybe if they actually booked a trial directly in Opus1.io, they're going to show up directly in prospect trial. So you don't even have to qualify them or whatever. They're going to be automatically tagged because Opus1.io supports auto tagging. So let's say Tom Doe, on the other hand, booked directly a trial, right? You will show up here. Of course, I'm faking it here, but you will see that Jane Doe booked a trial for Tom Doe on that day with that teacher. Tom Doe gets automatically tagged and automatically moved into the right status. So the prospect trial is a stage where there's a trial pending, and in some schools there is some action that need to be taken. Maybe we need to make sure we have a violin or a guitar for them. So there may be some actions that need to be taken. So you can do it here. Or maybe they're just a temporary stage between, we qualified them, they booked their trial, maybe on their own, so using our self-booking interface, or we actually signed them up for that trial, and we need to wait now for the trial to happen before we can actually convert them, right? So your prospects are going to be at different stages, right? So now let's say Alice, same thing, eventually you followed up with her a couple of times and she books that trial lesson. Now both Alice and Tom are in trial, right? So what's going to happen is you're going to have dozens and hundreds of leads at different stages, right? And then maybe eventually, let's say now Tom did have his guitar lesson, and as you take attendance for his guitar lesson, automatically, I'm doing it manually here because I'm faking it, but Opus1 will do that automatically for you. As soon as Tom Doe had his guitar trial lesson here, and you take attendance for it, it's going to move automatically to prospect trial follow-up, right? And what that means at that point is that he had his trial, and you can see it in the history here when you look at his history here, that he already had his trial. And Opus1.io will also send, well, if you set it up that way, an automated conversion email. So offer basically the same time with the same teacher starting the following week so he may even convert on his own, right? And go through the different stages. And some of them do that, by the way. At my school, I have people who self-book their trial. They walk in, they have a great time. They convert on the spot on their phone while they're at the front desk, and we have no work to do. That happens, right? But here we're talking about those that you still have to follow up with, right? Those that are not going to convert on their own, those that may not sign up for a trial on their own or convert on their own, right? So we want to make sure we don't miss any of those, right? So now, so let's look at a few different scenarios, right? So let's say Tom had a trial, and let's say, well, maybe Tom is 9-year-old and he's really not ready for guitar yet, right? So in that case, what do, right? We don't want to, we could mark them as lost. So we could go and say, okay, well, they're not interested. Sadly, we lost that prospect. And we're going to mark them lost reason. And we can say maybe not interested, right? So that happens and we can mark them as lost. But in this case here, let's say that maybe he's too young and maybe they're not ready to make a decision, or maybe it's the summer and they need to go on vacation and come back. We need to make sure we follow up with them, right? So you can, there's different systems you can adopt here. If it's a long wait, I have this prospect sleep category that I use at my school. So let's say we're going to put them in sleep and say, okay, well, he's really too young. We need to follow up with them in 6 months, right? And we want to make sure that we follow up with him. So we're going to make sure that my call manager or Chris staff follows up with him automatically. Well, not automatically, but that Chris staff knows that within the next 6 months, we need to follow up with that customer. Remember, we're going to put them in sleep for now because it's not a loss. They're still interested, but they're just a little bit too young or not ready yet, right? Now, if it's a shorter follow-up, maybe they tell us, well, we need, we're going to be away for 2 weeks for Chinese New Year. Call us back, when we come back. Then we're going to say, okay, we'll follow up with you in 7 days or maybe a little bit after that, right? And now I'm going to move him back to prospect follow-up to make sure we actively follow up with him, right? So it's very important to have this interface where you have accountability, you have tracking, you know what stage everybody is at. You can quickly and easily see what status they're in, if they had the trial or not, with who. When you call them, you have all the information right there. You can leave notes, right? So this whole interface helps you manage the whole life cycle of those prospects. Some of it will be automatic, some of it will be manual, but you want to make sure you don't basically miss a single prospect, right? And there's plenty of other things you can do. So let's say that we have Jade Clark here that went through the motions, right, and had a trial, and maybe she's lost. Okay, so we're gonna mark her as lost and say, okay, sadly, she's just didn't like piano, right? Sadly. So we're going to record this loss, right? Now, let's say that Jane Clark is another student, or let's say that we actually did sign up Alice, right? So we're going to move Alice to, so let's say she had a trial, right? Now we're following up with her and she wants to sign up. So we're just going to drag and drop her to enroll a book appointment. And now we're going to book, let's say she wants to sign up for guitar lessons. Or I think it was piano, whatever. And we're just going to sign her up. You know this. This is typical booking in Opus1.io. Let's just pick anybody. It doesn't matter. It may not be available just for the sake of the. Now we're just going to book. Ignore the warnings here. We're just going to book her. Let's say they paid in cash or credit card. Now Alice has become a member. So now it's a one. The prospect has been won, right? So if you go back to the prospect board, Alice is not there anymore because she's won, right? So the board kind of clears itself as you go, right? So now if let's say Jade was lost, you can see it here. Now, so this is one view, and we talked about different stages and loss and sleep and one. Now, if I also want to get some accountability and reporting, I can also look at the prospect conversion, right? So I can look at, okay, let's show me all the prospects that were created, all the clients created in the last, I don't know, 30 days or 60 days, and you can do different time range. I can see who they're assigned to, who the actual client is. I can see that now they're currently a member. So Laura Hall was one, and I can see that she signed up for voice private lesson, and she was a prospect for about 2 months, which is maybe a little bit long here. And she was assigned to Bob Custom Staff here for 8 days. And that counts for Bob, that counts as a win, right? So if I look at, let's look at Bob Custom Staff only, I can see, so all the deals, all the prospects, if you will, that were assigned to Bob, here they are. And Bob signed up 97. That's pretty high. That's pretty unrealistic. This is a demo, but a little bit, you're going to have maybe a 70% or 60 or 80% win rate, which means this is how many prospects were won, actually signed up, right? Some might still be pending and some might be lost. And for those that were lost, we also track what was the lost reason, right? Maybe they were not interested, maybe they moved away, maybe they ended up signing up another school, or maybe you just didn't have a slot on Tuesday that they needed, right? You don't have enough guitar teachers, whatever the reason is, you can capture it here. So we give you a full reporting, a very advanced interface where you can have accountability for your staff. You know who converted who, and when you want to look at, okay, let me look at, this is something I do for my school, and I train my director of operations to do very systematically, is every week we look at all the pending deals, all the pending customers. We look at who they're assigned to. We look at since when they've been a prospect, and we want to make sure they've been followed up on a regular basis, right? And we have a process, multiple step follow-up process. And obviously they're not closed yet because they're pending. And we look for how long they've been a prospect, and we make sure we check the status. Okay, what happens with this one? Okay, they were called, they were not called. Maybe this one was not assigned to anybody, so we can rectify that and assign it to somebody and say, okay, we want Chris manager to take over that prospect here and make sure they get followed up and signed up. So we know who they're assigned to, who they are, when they became a prospect, when was the last follow-up, when is the next follow-up due. We can quickly see the notes and see what happened, and we see for how long, and we see all the win and loss rates right there. So we give you all that information to make sure that every single prospect is followed up with and not missed, and correctly categorized and tagged, right? So talking about you need to define that process. You need to train your staff on using the right tool, and you need to make sure every single prospect is followed up with, right? And one more thing I want to add, and I'm sure Rory, you can have some questions about this after, is two things. How can I give commissions to my staff, right? So we've seen some schools being successful with commissioning their admin staff when they booked students. So let's say you give them a $5 bonus for every trial that they book, right? So you can do that. We have a new feature that we had recently in Opus1.io. So let's do it for Phil here. You can go to an admin staff or a manager and add a commission rate. So this is the pay rate that they get when they perform, when they provide a service, right? When they teach. But for your admins, you can also set them a commission and say every time you book a trial, whatever the instrument, select all, you're getting, I don't know, $5 bonus, right? Or commission, right? Or it could be a percentage of the sale. So we added commissions recently. I'm also experimenting with my school on that. whatever works for you. You need accountability, you need incentives, and you need a system to track all these leads and make sure they all get followed up. We just started using this interface a lot more in the last month or so at my school, and we probably just signed up, I think, 70 students that were lingering, in limbo, that had not been followed up, and just by using the tool more accurately and more effectively, and having more accountability for our staff, we really just enrolled a bunch of new students that we'd have probably not enrolled if we did not have the right tool to follow up on everybody. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and I think the overarching ideas here are twofold. So it's firstly, you can't fix what you can't measure. So if you needed some system to measure things. Um, and the second part of it is making sure you have a system to convert the students and kind of, I think, conceptually understanding how important it is to do so. So like the analogy I always give people is if I told you every day that or every other day $2,000 was going to blow by your front door of your house, you would build a machine really quick to alert you that that $2,000 was blowing right by your front door. You'd build a contraption to try to grab it out of the air. I mean, that's really what a process like this is. But I think sometimes we have to zoom out and really think about the cost of a student and the value of a student.
Yeah.
Those are my key takeaways from talking about our
Yeah,
sales
absolutely.
process.
Of course, I haven't mentioned all the features and all the things. There's plenty more to look at, but I also want to add one more thing I forgot to mention is that you're gonna have let's say you're out of guitar. All the guitar teachers are full, right? So let's say all your prospect end up in prospect sleep because maybe you don't have enough guitar teachers, right? So let's say this is what happens. Now, let's say 2 months down the road, you hire a new guitar teacher, right? And you want to say, oh, we had all these people that were interested in guitar, right? What happened to them? Well, now they're properly tracked and tagged, right? That's why tagging and keeping accurate records of all these prospects is important, because now look at all of these. I can go to search and I say, show me all the prospects interested in guitar. And here is like 5 or 6 of them. And from there, I can just send them a batch email or a batch SMS. And I can say, hey, let's say we want to we contact everybody, maybe except those that were lost because maybe they just told us they moved away and not interested. And I can go here and say, hey, a few months ago or over the last few weeks, you came to us looking for guitar lessons. Great news! Great news. We have this great guitar teacher available, and you can even include that link, and they can self book a trial directly from there. So we have all these tools to help you track all these leads, batch message them. Track them, set up reminders and next follow up dates, and also accountability so that your managers or yourself can make sure that your staff is not just staying comfortable being proactive with people calling and showing up to the door, but actually following up proactively, right? So being reactive, I was saying, you will see naturally that's what happened with my staff. They were so busy, they're just being reactive. People walk in, people email, people call, and they sign up what they can, but they were missing like maybe 60 or 70% of the leads that come through the door. And now that we have a more proactive approach and we're tracking things accurately, and we have accountability and maybe even some level of incentives where they get a little bonus when they sign up more students, it makes a huge difference. And that's a great way to scale your music school.
Sam, I think maybe next we can hop a little bit more into the functionality of the campaign feature, and especially
Yeah.
what's coming up soon. I think is pretty exciting as well.
Yeah, let's talk very quickly about it, right? I think I have a little bit more time. Do you have time to
Yep.
continue?
Yeah. Absolutely.
Yeah, cool. So let's kind of finish the journey, right? Because we talked about converting, like awareness, converting, right? And then the next step is obviously serve them and making sure teacher shows up on time and all that stuff, and you resettles everything you do as a music school. And let's talk a little bit about nurture and amplify a little bit, right? So this is more of a campaign feature in Plus, and I want to talk a little bit about it. And most of the schools that are already our customers or not usually already have MailChimp or Constant Contact or Active Campaign or some ways to, at the very least, do a newsletter, right? But sometimes it's not enough, right? Sometimes so first of all, if you're paying extra money for MailChimp, Active Campaign, all of those, Opus1 can replace that now, and we have these pretty much like a full MailChimp or equivalent replacement. You can create campaigns, you can schedule them. Right now, we support what we call one-time or scheduled campaigns. We're working on also on ongoing and automated campaigns. I'm going to talk about that very quickly. But basically, right now in Opus1.io, you can create your newsletter easily, create a campaign, schedule it, and we have this great email editor, and you can have templates and all of that. And you can basically, as you would expect, create your your typical newsletter, have your school logo. You can even have some obviously some text. You can even use AI and say, okay, well, fix that text for me, make it more funny, more friendly, or expand it, or make it more formal. So we even have some AI capabilities right there to help you create your newsletters and that content. So this is a typical newsletter, and you can just schedule it and send it to everybody. That's pretty typical. It's good to have it in one place. You don't have to synchronize with ActiveCampaign, different like clients and all that stuff. But we go way beyond that, and I want to talk a little bit about it. So there's a lot of use cases where you want to send what we call an email and or an SMS campaign to a bunch of students, but it could be obviously everybody, like your newsletter. So newsletter is simple. You just go here and say everyone. So you just call this everyone. And guess what? Everyone. And now, the system will, let's say you have 500, 10,000, whatever the number is, that newsletter will go to all your students. Now, sometimes you want to do more targeted email or SMS campaign. And this is where the campaign becomes really interesting. So let's look at a couple of use cases, right? So I talked about batch email, batch SMS for certain prospects. So you can also do a scheduled message like this, and you can say, okay, I want to target, let's say, my guitar prospects. So I'm going to select here client status in one of those. So maybe prospect follow-up, prospect sleep, prospect new, and maybe prospect trial or trial follow-up, right? And I also want those that have a those tag, hashtag guitar, right? So this is kind of the same thing I did earlier, but in a more structured campaign, scheduled way. So you can create these scheduled campaigns based on certain tags or combination of tags and statuses. And then you can say, okay, I want to see everybody that has those criteria. And then you can basically schedule that campaign and send that campaign and schedule that email or SMS to be sent at that particular time. The next thing is you can also do a lot more complicated stuff. And this is where using other email software like MailChimp, ActiveCampaign, Constant Contact, all of that will just never do correctly for you, is based on very specific information we have in Opus1.io. So let's look at a typical use case. It's August or September, and you want to email or SMS or both all the students that you lost over the summer. This is a very, very, very common use case, right? You want to say, okay, I want to, so let's say lost summer students. You can call your criteria this way. And you can look at, and we have a very specific, and we have plenty others. I don't have time to talk, but, and we're adding more, by the way. But here we can, for example, because we have all that information in Opus1.io, we can let you easily say, I want to email all the students, let's say, that we lost in the last 90 days, right? And you can create a scheduled campaigns where you can very, very, very quickly identify and email those students. And obviously the students are the one that you lost, but the one receiving the email, the SMS, are going to be usually the parents, the account managers, and Opus1.io does that very well, right? So this campaign tool, obviously there's plenty more to discuss, but just want to say it's an integrated, rich email, templated email and SMS that lets you schedule very targeted campaigns. You can do it through criteria like this. You can do it also through the calendar. You can go to your calendar and say, show me only the guitar students, and look at the week view. And from there, you can say, I want to batch email all these people. And you can make it as a scheduled campaign. So we make it easy for you to do it right there and then based on very specific criteria in your calendar. Very, very fine, granular, targeted criteria based on tags, based on when the lesson ended or things like that. And the next step, and this is everything I said so far is available today in Opus1.io Plus. But the one thing that we're working on right now that's going to come up in the next few weeks that I'm very excited about is you're going to be able to what we call create ongoing campaigns, and you're going to be able to create automated follow-up campaigns. And what this means is you're going to be able to create workflows and flows of emails that says when a prospect is, let's say, prospect new, he or she automatically receives this welcome email. And then after 3 days, that SMS, or maybe after 3 days, a call is due and you need to call them and they get blocked at that stage until somebody calls them. And then we send them an email every week until they actually either tell us, stop emailing me anymore, or until maybe they switch to prospect trial because they actually ended up booking their trial lesson. And then we send them another set of emails or whatever follow up. So we're adding these automated follow ups with very granular and very precise targeting that will allow you to create these workflows for different statuses on your prospects and have them automated follow up, like completely automatically through email and SMS, and maybe some manual calls or reach out by a human to make sure they sign up. So I'm very excited about that. That's coming in the next 4 to 6 weeks, maybe slightly more. We'll see where we're at. But automated campaigns is coming soon, and it's going to be really the last kind of missing piece to this really like amazing, sales conversion and nurturing tool. And by the way, talking about nurturing, this is an important point. You mentioned that you don't want to nurture just your prospect. You also want to nurture your current students. You want to see how they're doing. Are they still happy with their teacher? Maybe they're ready to give you a Google review, right? So you're going to be able to create also those ongoing campaigns where you can say when somebody has a subscription, after 30 days, we're going to ask them, hey, how are things going? We're going to send them that check-in email to say, uh, we see that you just started guitar lesson 30 days ago. How is it going, right? Everything good? Just want to check in with you. Call us or text us if you have any concern. Maybe after 60 days, thank you, for being a valued customer. We see that we hope you're enjoying your guitar lessons. We would love if you could give us a Yelp review or Google review after 60 or 90 days, whatever you want. So you're going to be able to create those automated check-ins with existing students, with old students. So you can say, everybody has been an old student, we're going to send them a we miss you email every 3 months, whatever, maybe not every day, but every 3 months. So you're going to be able to create these fine-tuned drip marketing style ongoing campaign that are going to be based on the status of your students, whether they're prospect, whether they're current students, or whether they're old students. Does that make sense? Did I kind of like explain a little bit the whole concept? Did I miss anything?
No, I think you got it. And I mean, we talked a little bit about all the different platforms out here that do one of these things in one way or another. And there may be people listening now that are like, well, I have MailChimp and I have Monday.com, or I have this. Like, why put it all on Opus? In my opinion, the first one is you're probably definitely going to save money. I mean, if that's what your focal point is,
Yeah,
you're
but
definitely
on
going to
that
save money.
particular point, there's something that I'll post online is I added up the cost of some of our competitors plus, Referizer, Bird Eye, MailChimp, ActiveCampaign, or ZipWhip. So when you add up all these tools, and I mentioned multiple times the same ones or the same category, it costs you about $1,000 plus, right? But with Opus1 Plus, if you're a school around 200 or 300 students, you can get all of that SMS, which is US only at the moment, but soon in other countries. 200 or plus students with Opus1 one location, and Opus1 Plus for something I think around $300 to $400 total, right? And it could be more if you have more students, less if you have less students, but it's usually a fraction of what you pay when you have all these other tools that add up, between Referizer, ZipWhip, MailChimp, Monday.com, or this and this and that. And you add all of that, plus obviously Opus1 core or your scheduling or billing software, right? So the cost is definitely a major factor.
Yeah, I mean, you're going to save a lot of money, but I think the big point of having it all in one place is the continuity of data, right? So Opus has a very particular language, and it's an advanced language, and it's a language that was built for music schools. So
Exactly.
a really simple example would be understanding the relationship of a parent and a child and what that means in the scenario of a music or performing arts school. Well, MailChimp doesn't speak that language, for instance. And when you have what I like to call a Frankenstein of a system or a Franken system, things get lost in translation from one system to the next. And if right now you're trying to get Opus to talk to MailChimp, even with the integration, or if you're trying to get MailChimp to talk to another system you have, or Referizer to talk to this, you already know what I'm talking about. That something always gets lost in translation. So the real value beyond the saving money, because I know we all love to save money, but beyond that is getting everything under one house because there's continuity of data. So now your sales pipeline speaks the same language as your administrative platform, as your lesson, as your billing, as your reputation management, and as your outreach, your marketing. They all speak the same language because they're in the same house.
Exactly. And also they flow naturally together, right? So if the students actually books that trial lesson, you don't sending them a prospect follow-up email because we know they already switched status to from prospect follow-up to prospect trial follow-up, right? So the status are there. It's all in the same place. And also I want to add to what you said. So obviously cost is definitely one. the fact that it's integrated and it flows naturally within the system as the life cycle of that student, moves forward and evolves, the system is integrated and knows about it, right? And also ease of use, because honestly, I mean, have you tried? I mean, you know, because you use HubSpot, you're an expert, but HubSpot is complicated, right? If you
Oh
use
yeah.
HubSpot, I mean, we've had customers using either HubSpot or Monday.com or other CRMs, and paying for Zapier, that's another $200 right there, to integrate workflows and using webhooks, and it costs them $1,000, $1,500. Sometimes they have to hire a Zapier or an automation expert. It never works exactly as they want, so they spend months fine tuning it, and they ended up, you know, maintaining this monster that costs a lot of money, that doesn't do exactly what they want, and it's super complicated to set up, and most school actually give up, trying to get any kind of drip marketing, because they just, things don't talk to each other or don't talk the same language. But what we try to do with Opus1 Plus is solve that problem, because over time we had a lot of people telling us, hey, we want to do drip marketing campaign, hey, we want to follow up on our leads, hey, we want to do reputation management, but do you integrate with X, do you integrate with Y? And we can't integrate with everything, and even if we did, it would never be a perfect integration. Nothing is, or it would be complicated and costly. So we decide to have everything in one place and easy to set up, designed for music schools. And hopefully, I hope this webinar was useful for people watching to kind of get an overview of both the value of tracking and measuring and understanding and optimizing the customer journey, right? So you can maximize your enrollment and your growth, and how Opus1 Plus can help you with that. Anything else you want to add, Rory, to this topic?
I mean, yeah, no, not really. I think we covered everything in a really great way, and I look forward to being able to do more of these webinars for
Me too.
for
I'm
our
excited
customers.
about it.
I think we've spent so much time building a great product and like kind of getting the word out there that now it's really important that we re-engage with what I like to call our Opus family about, hey, how can we keep using these things on an ongoing basis, to really, really leverage this to kind of accelerate our growth. And for anyone out there listening that's on the fence about Opus Plus, if you don't have it yet and it's something you want to explore further, either me or anyone on my team is very well versed in the world of growing a music school, whether through ownership or through having been a teacher or being a marketing expert. We're always happy to hop on a call. Or if you have Opus Plus and you still, after this webinar, feel that you're not getting the most out of it, reach out. We're always happy to talk shop. We live and breathe music education. So we're always happy to hop on calls with our customers and talk more about the product and understand, is this the right time to get it? Or if I already have it, am I using it to the best of its ability? So you can reach out to us at sales@opus1.io. Or if you go into your support chat, they can also help with the kind of high level.
So I was about to say, obviously our sales team is great, and they can help you. We have a support team that a lot of you are already talking to on a weekly or sometimes daily basis, especially when you're setting up. But if you also, we have customers that upgraded to Plus and they don't really know how to use it, because we've done a terrible job at documenting and publishing tutorials. So I'm glad we're fixing that now. So I hope this session was useful. We've had customers paying for Plus and completely underutilizing it and having no idea what it even does, or not everything it can do. So I hope this is going to help, and we're going to continue publishing more webinars, more tutorials, more documentation, and really kind of tailoring it to the specific needs of a music school, and making sure that it's valuable, not just a tool that is complicated to set up without any help, but also kind of how you should really use it in the context of a music school and the particular needs of a music school.
Yeah, I see the same thing. I see customers that have Plus enabled and they don't take the time, I think, to fully understand it, which I think we could have done a better job assisting with like the kind of post onboarding support. And it's important to note that if any one of the features of Opus Plus allows you to book just one new student, assuming that your lessons are more than $100 a month, it pays for itself. If you get one student as a result of Opus Plus on an annual basis, if you only ever got one student from Plus on an annual basis, you paid
still worth it.
Subscription.
But yeah, trust me, you'll get hundreds. I mean, I can speak, as a user of the system myself, and I really designed it and developed it with some of our own pain points in mind, and obviously talking to a lot of other customers. But it's made, just for my school, made a difference just for the last few months, and just how we track those prospects and convert them, and dozens, probably about 100 students just recently. We would have not signed up if it wasn't for a better system and a better tool that we
And
bring
it's
this up.
funny too. We have some of the largest schools in the country, and they may even use something like HubSpot for a completely separate portion of their business. So let's say that they do like retail or something to that effect. They may actually use HubSpot for it, but they still use Opus Plus because it's just we don't need to overcomplicate it either.
Yeah.
As someone who's run a school and somebody who's also very well versed in HubSpot, I would never use HubSpot, at least for the lesson side of a music school. It's like absolute overkill. And as Sam will begrudgingly tell you, it's like thousands of dollars if you
It's
want to get
expensive. I
the
mean, we
full
use it
functionality
for
of HubSpot.
our own sales of Opus1 IO. We use HubSpot because it's a good tool. It costs a fortune. It's complicated, and I can only afford it because I have somebody like Rory who is an expert at setting it up and has worked in other organizations doing sales. But it's completely overkill for a music school, and it doesn't really speak that language, right? So it's better to have something integrated into your scheduling and your billing system.
Especially if you want to scale. And you know, I hear a lot of talk in the different groups about you know, music school management and administration. It's like hard to find good people too. It's hard to find good desk people. You don't want to dump something like HubSpot on your front desk administrator, which especially I know for a lot of schools, it's actually sometimes it's a parent of one of the kids that is looking for some extra money during the day, or they want
Yeah,
to get involved in the
we
business.
started that way too. We started that way.
Oh, I've seen it at a million schools. It's
Yeah,
the school that I used to own. I had one of the moms working there. Schools that I've taught at, it's the same thing. And like, you want to dump something more like Opus Plus on them. It's a lot more easy to understand. And you're
simple.
only asking them to learn one language instead of like 7 different languages. That's the other part worth mentioning.
Great. Well, thanks for Rory for joining the session. I think that was really helpful. And for those of you watching, thank you for your time. As we said, don't hesitate to reach out to our support through chat or email, and to our sales team if you're interested in Opus1 IO Plus, if you have any questions. And yeah, thank you for watching. There'll be many more of those hopefully, and we hope they are useful. Thank you very much.